Part 33. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 322. This matter that Shenzhen mentioned was mentioned by many Huangji unlevel disciples when Wu Yu was in the fighting immortal battlefield just now. As I write this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. He himself has similar troubles. In this yellow sword realm, there is almost no place for him to perform. Shenzhen was still thoughtful and had already made arrangements for Wu Yu. Admittedly, maybe he was interested in his talent, but these help did bring huge help to Wu Yu. I can't thank you enough for your kindness, Wu Yu cupped his hands and said. Shenzhen said calmly, in the end, you have to rely on yourself along the way to cultivate Taoism. You are not as good as other talented young people. You are similar to me back then. I am just a favor to help you solve some small things. It is not worth mentioning. After a pause, he continued, in general, I am optimistic about your will to practice Taoism, your purity and perseverance, and your innocent heart. Therefore, I also want to see how you can survive in the supreme hunting ground. To what extent? Purely optimistic and appreciative, Shenzhen was very straightforward and did not hide his purpose. If you are ready, go to the Shengxian Palace and wait for your opponent to arrive, Shenzhen said. This was a test set by the master of the mysterious sword territory. After all, if Wu Yu wanted to break the rules and enter the mysterious sword territory, he had to show some amazing performance. At least all Huangji unlevel disciples, even the top 100 combined, may not be able to defeat the 9th in the Xian Sword Immortal ranking. I have nothing to worry about. This will be over. In general, Wu Yu naturally longed to quickly reach the peak of Qingtianshu mountain in his lifetime and see the scenery of the adjacent Tiangong. As soon as the ferry arrived, Ji, Yan, and Ji Yiguan looked at the new sister Zhang. From the mortal sword realm to the yellow sword realm, and then to the Xian sword realm, it only took less than half a year. The speed was already extraordinary, unprecedented, and even unprecedented. However, Wu Yu said goodbye, walked 2 or 3 steps, and then stopped. He remembered that Shenzhen knew Nangong Wei. He must know some details, why not ask him? Instead of waiting in vain, you need to have some idea in mind, otherwise Wu Yu will worry about whether something will happen to her in the Shushan Samsara cave after such a long time. Thinking of this, he turned around, met Shenzhen starry eyes, and mustered up the courage to ask, Sword Master, I want to ask you about someone. Shenzhen responded directly, Nangong Wei, right. Sure enough, he knew him, and he also knew that Wu Yu had interacted with Nangong Wei. She once told me that she would enter the Shushan Samsara cave for 2 or 3 years. It has been almost 4 years now. Why is there still no news? Is it normal to be in there for such a long time? Wu Yu asked. But Shenzhen replied, Nangong Wei came out of the reincarnation cave in Shushan 2 years ago. What? Wu Yu was slightly stunned. When he came out 2 years ago, he was still fighting in the supreme hunting ground. He returned to Shushan a year ago and made a lot of noise. Why didn't she come to find him? However, it is said that she received great blessings in the reincarnation cave in Shushan mountain and was almost completely transformed. Therefore, as soon as she came out, she asked the Qiang Sword Immortal to go into seclusion to digest the inheritance and consolidate the foundation. She has been in seclusion for 2 years now, Shen Xinyao said next. I see. Wu Yu also felt that if possible, she would have no reason not to come see him. After all, it was she who had left Wu Yu the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar. Creation. Inheritance. Qiang Sword Immortal. When he heard that Nangong Wei had been blessed and even inherited, Wu Yu naturally felt happy for her. The so-called Taoist couples must be equal in talent at least, so that they can help each other in their monastic life. Otherwise, they will only become a drag on the other party. Shenzhen said, that's right. In the reincarnation cave, she received the inheritance of the Kwang Sword Emperor, one of the ancestors of the Nangong clan. The Kwang Sword Emperor has a very long history. The inheritance I received came from the Star Sword Emperor. When the Star Sword Emperor was young, the Kwang Sword Emperor was already a legend. Judging from the highest achievements, Kwang Sword Emperor should be 3 points better than Star Domain Sword Emperor. Therefore, if everything goes well, Nangong Wei may become one of the new 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan in the future. In terms of potential, it is much greater than you are now. The Xuanhuan Immortal sect has a very long history. Over the countless years, there have been countless people of the level of the Xuanhuan 7 Immortals. Many of them died before becoming immortals, leaving behind inheritance, understanding, and benefiting future generations. According to the inheritance that Wu Yu has heard so far, the Star Sword Emperor should be number 1. He didn't expect Nangong Wei to be so lucky and even get a better fortune than Shenzhen Jiao. Wu Yu was sincerely happy for her and felt a little more at ease. After all, her life was not in danger. Do you know who the Qiang Sword Immortal is? Shenzhen Jiao suddenly asked. Wu Yu shook his head. This seemed to be the person who asked Nangong Wei to retreat. Shenzhen Jiao's expression was slightly serious and he said, "This year's 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan are each named after the Big Dipper. Tianshu is the first and Qiang is the 6th. The 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan are ranked from 1 row to 7 in order of combat power. Qiang Sword Immortal ranks 6th, but he is the youngest among the 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan. His real name is Nangong Xian. Nangong Xian. Wu Yu instantly understood that judging from this surname and Nangong Wei's previous words and deeds, Nangong Xian was either Nangong Wei's father or her grandfather, and the father was more likely to be the one. Qiang Sword Immortal only has 1 daughter, and she has extremely high requirements for her. Shenzhen Jiao confirmed Nangong Wei's identity with one sentence. No wonder she didn't dare to tell herself that she was the daughter of the 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan. If she told herself this status early in the morning, she would probably frighten herself. Wu Yu was also lucky. He casually ran to Jindan Cave to hide from Zhang Futu, and unexpectedly met the daughter of Qiang Sword Immortal. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Having said this, Wu Yu nodded and said, "Sure, I understand." He just needed to know Nangong Wei's current situation and have an idea. Just when he said this, Shenzhen Jiao suddenly said, "Wu Yu, at present, you have certain status differences, and you will encounter a lot of obstacles. This does not seem to be an easy path, and Qiang Sword Immortal is not easy to deal with either. You and Nangong Wei will never escape his eyes. If you don't give up, I advise you to make mental preparations." Shenzhen Jiao said it very straightforwardly, and Wu Yu understood that this was indeed a kind of pressure. After all, for the entire Xuanhuan Immortal sect, he was only a well-known genius in the Huangjian domain and Xianjian domain, but he was not considered the top one. In addition, Nangong Wei has received the inheritance from her ancestors, and I am afraid that a rising tide will lift all boats. If she does not perform better, this road will be difficult to follow. Wu Yu knew it well and said, "I just want to live up to my beloved. If she needs me, I will not leave. If she gives up, I will never stay." The piece of paper under the demonic pillar of Zhufang suppression had a great impact on Wu Yu, and he had a love affair that he would never forget in his life. "Okay, you can take charge of this matter yourself, no one will interfere." Shenzhen Jiao did not hinder him. Now that he knew what was going on, Wu Yu finally put down a stone. After bidding farewell to Shenzhen Jiao, he left the territory lord's mansion and went to the Shengxian Palace in Huangjian territory without stopping too much. Compared to the Immortal Palace in the Mortal Sword region, the Immortal Palace in the Huang Sword region is at least 10 times larger in size. In fact, regarding Wu Yu's challenge to the Xianjian level, the people in the Shengxian Palace knew faster than Wu Yu himself. Therefore, when Wu Yu arrived, many people had already gathered in the Shengxian Palace. There are a large number of Huangjian level disciples, and there are also many Xuanjian level disciples who came from the Xianjian domain. As time passed, there were even more Xuanjian level disciples. After all, this battle was almost related to the dignity of Xuanjian level disciples, so there were many onlookers. The Shengxian Palace is like a steel jungle with a larger space. A few battles are not a problem at all. When Wu Yu walked into the Shengxian Palace, there were at least 1,000 people around. Basically, the Huangjian level disciples were on one side. The Xianjian level disciples are on the other side. From the scene, the Xuanjian level disciples naturally had the upper hand. Many Huangjian level disciples faced them and only dared to stand in the corner. This news shocked the Xianjian territory greatly, because the Xianjian territory never had disciples who failed to reach the realm but had to pass the test to rush in. If it weren't for Shenzhenjiao, this would have been impossible. That's why when Wu Yu came here, the discussion was so loud. The Huangjian level disciples were relatively familiar with Wu Yu, while the Xuanjian level disciples were mostly strangers. Most of them were middle-aged ascetics who had practiced Taoism for at least 100 years and had passed their golden period. There were even many old men pointing fingers at Wu Yu. This little guy is Wu Yu. It is said that he has no opponent when he first entered the Yellow Sword domain. He even defeated Chen Fui from our Xian Sword domain. The key is that he is only at the 6th level of the Golden Core realm. Guess whether he can pass this challenge? Absolutely not. Don't forget, who is the opponent chosen by the domain master? He is stronger than Chen Fui. Chen Fui can only be regarded as average in Xianjian domain, but he is one of the top 10 people. There is no comparison, and none of the 10 Chen Fui can match him. You're talking about Xuanhuan Shen, right? The biological son of the domain lord of the Xianjian domain, Dongyu Sword Saint. It is said that he took the initiative to ask for a fight. Xiao Huanshan has a strong temperament and is much better than Chen Fui. I am optimistic about Xiao Huanshan. In that case, let's make a bet. If you bet on Wu Yu, you'll get 5 for 1, and if you bet on Xiao Huanshan, you'll get 5 for 1. Who dares to bet Wu Yu? Okay, if you dare to be a banker, I'll bet Xiao Huanshan to win with 300 yuan of golden elixir. I'm here too. I'll try my luck. I'll bet Wu Yu for 50 yuan on the golden elixir. If he wins for the first time, I'll win 250 yuan. If I lose, the loss will be small, hee. The Xuanjian level disciples were particularly lively, especially when there was a bet, and everyone was placing bets. The bets were so big that they scared the banker. Of course, most people are pushing for Xiao Huanshan, but there are also those who are pushing for Wu Yu. Being the banker is also a gamble. Judging from the current bets, Wu Yu has to win in order for him to make a big profit. Even with 5 times the odds, not many people bet on Wu Yu, which shows that everyone already knows the outcome of this battle. Wu Yu came to the field. Wait a moment, Xiao Huanshan is almost here. A middle-aged man dressed in black is the master of the Ascension Hall, and he is probably a being close to the heavenly sword level. Wu Yu looked around and saw Chen Fui among the crowd. He couldn't help it, his eyes were too sinister, so Wu Yu spotted him immediately. Such a long time is indeed enough for him to recover. Wu Yu smiled. /U003 sem /U003e /U003 sem /U003 follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, read it early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003c /m /U003e /U003c /m /U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 323. After arriving here and listening to other people's discussions, Wu Yu found out that the 9th person on the Mysterious Sword Immortal list was the son of the Lord of the Mysterious Sword Domain, the Dongyu Sword Master. It is estimated that when Shenzhen Jiao was communicating with Dongyu Sword Master, this Xuanhuan level disciple named Xuanhuan happened to be present. Wu Yu was depressed. Previously, it was Chen Fuyu, the son of the Red Shadow Sword Master who blocked the way in the Shengxian Palace in the Mortal Sword domain. Now he was in the Shengxian Palace again, but the person blocking the way became the son of the Dongyu Sword Master. Could it be that I and the sons of the Sword Masters were born to dislike each other? He was born into a royal family, at least in Suqiao, and his status was considered noble. Many commoners envied him, but only after entering the monastic world did he realize that he could only be described as having a humble background. In terms of background, it is true that there is heaven and earth, and there are people outside the world. For example, on top of Chenfuyu and Xuanhuan, there is Nangong Wei. There was no group of warblers around Chenfuyu this time. Some of them were probably his companions from the Xianjian domain, headed by him. They all looked at Wu Yu with less than kind eyes. Especially Chenfuyu, when he saw Wu Yu, his eyes were on fire. From a long distance away, he made a gesture of wiping Wu Yu's neck with his hands. It is estimated that he has been practicing hard during this period and is looking for opportunities to avenge his shame. After being defeated by Wu Yu, the prestige he had built up for decades was gone. The Shengxian Palace was in full swing, waiting for the arrival of another protagonist. Under everyone's excited and expectant wait, Xuanhuan arrived late. Many Xianjian level disciples in front suddenly became quiet and gave this Xianjian immortal the genius sword cultivator ranked 9th on the list made way for him. Baidu Yi, hey, Yan, brother, watch the chapters for free without pop-ups. Wu Yu saw him at a glance. He was a burly and stout young man, taller and sturdier than Wu Yu. He had short hair, with roots standing up like needlepoints. He was shirtless, wearing only a pair of trousers, and a dark muscles, with many scars on them, like battle honors, displayed unscrupulously. His eyes were as sharp as swords, penetrating through him, and even the ground was shaking as he walked. Wu Yu instantly knew that the son of Dongyu Sword Master had naturally inherited his father's tradition. The land under his feet seemed to be in his control, and his every move affected the veins of the earth. At this time, Xuanhuan passed by Chenfuyu, who nodded to him. Xuanhuan understood, relaxed, and smiled lightly. Seeing this, Chenfuyu also laughed. When he looked at Wu Yu, his eyes were already somewhat intriguing. They are all the sons of the Sword Master, brothers in the same circle. Wu Yu was not surprised that Xuanhuan wanted to help Chenfuyu vent his anger. From this point of view, it should have been Shenzhen Jiao and Dongyu Sword Master who talked about this. Xuanhuan took the initiative to ask for help. Get out of the way. Xuanhuan was an extremely domineering person with a thick figure. Every word he spoke was like a huge stone hitting the ground, causing a roar. Under its majesty, the Huangjian level disciples stayed away, and the Xuanjian level disciples also gave way. In this wide space, only Wu Yu and Xuanhuan were left face to face. For a moment, this Xuanhuan created a lot of pressure and backlogged Wu Yu. The 10th level of the Golden Core Dao realm, and also ranked in the top 10 of the Xianjian level, with a cultivation level that can crush Bailey Fi Hung. This kind of opponent is undoubtedly my limit at this moment. When facing Xuanhuan, Wu Yu's long-dormant fighting passion finally burst out crazily. To be honest, since the battle with the Golden Stone Monkey, Wu Yu has never encountered a truly challenging opponent. This is even more true after reaching the 6th level of the Golden Core realm. Wu Yu can easily defeat Chenfuyu. As for Xuanhuan, as soon as he appeared on the stage, Wu Yu knew what he was capable of, and he must be at his limit. With super talent, strong elixir, strong will, the best magic weapons, talismans, best Taoist techniques and supernatural powers in his hands, his combat power must have reached the limit of the Jindan Dao realm, approaching the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. Such an opponent is also the limit that Shenzhen Jiao has chosen for himself. In the extreme battle, even Wu Yu himself is not sure of the outcome. With such an opponent, how can he not be fanatical and burning in his heart? At this moment, Wu Yu's eyes seemed to be spitting fire. Xiao Huanshan was even more simple and rude. When the two looked at each other, he didn't even say hello, didn't even bother to say a word to Wu Yu, and directly pulled out the psychic magic weapon from the Sumuru bag. It was a dim giant sword with a hilt shaped like a mountain. There were 8 whirlpools on the huge sword blade. They were actually 8 magic circles. At a glance, the magic circle whirlpool looked like a bottomless pit. Like the road to hell, so eye-catching, the entire Shangxian palace trembles when waved, which shows how much impact it has on the ground. 8 Prison Mountain Divine Sword. Xiao Huanshan uses this sword directly. It seems that he regards Wu Yu as his formidable enemy. With one sword strike, the sky collapsed and the earth shattered. The heroes were in awe and even moved away to avoid being accidentally injured by Xiao Huanshan. Xiao Huanshan stared at Wu Yu as if staring at his prey. At this moment, he raised his giant sword with a disdainful sneer at the corner of his mouth. He was still too lazy to say a word. At this time, the golden elixir in his dantian, the magical brand, was also activated directly, and a yellow light was released from it, sweeping across the entire place instantly. This area even enveloped some Xuanhuan level disciples, occupying most of the Ascension Hall. Earth Core Realm, the disciples trapped in this realm suddenly exclaimed. Buzz. A tremor. Its magical power can be activated directly. Wu Yu was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. He immediately felt as if a huge mountain was pressing down on his head. He was like carrying this huge mountain on his back to confront his opponent. It was very difficult to move and make movements. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading. He was still lucky. Some Xuanjian level disciples at the edge were directly pressed to the ground and could not move. They had to rely on the deacons of the Ascension Hall to pull them out. Only then could they breathe, but they were also scared to death. A very top-level avenue magical power, Wu Yu understood it immediately. This magical power of the Earth Core realm mainly greatly increased the surrounding gravity. Under this kind of pressure, Wu Yu was basically like carrying a mountain on his back to fight Xiao Huanshan. And Xiao Huanshan was naturally like a fish in water under his magical power. When he saw that Wu Yu was still able to stand in his Earth Core realm, he couldn't help but smile and said, "Not bad, you are indeed qualified to challenge the Xianjian realm." However, the next look was even more domineering. After covering Wu Yu in the Earth Core realm, he suddenly attacked, wielding the A8 Hell Mountain Divine Sword, the peak sword cultivation technique, and performed it without saying a word. When he rushed towards Wu Yu, there was a moment of collapse and earth-shattering momentum, and even the stable Ascension Palace was shaken. 10,000 Mountains Collapsing Sword Technique. Xiao Huanshan used all his strength at the beginning. It seems that he wants to defeat Wu Yu in one move. Earth Core Realm plus 8 Hell Mountain Divine Sword plus 10,000 Mountains Collapsing Sword Technique, who can stop it below the Purple Mansion Kanghai Realm? The person who defeated Xiao Huanshan couldn't help but feel happy. Although he didn't win much, it was also a gain. As soon as the sword cultivation technique came out, Wu Yu fell into a world surrounded by the earth. When the 8 Hells Mountain sword was swung, he could even see tens of thousands of peaks explode behind Xiao Huanshan, and all the soil and rocks melted into the 8 Hells Mountain sword. One sword was enough to tear apart a large mountain range in the endless earth. This attack, combined with the oppression of the Earth Core realm, is estimated to be as powerful as the general Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. Facing such pressure, Wu Yu at this moment had no fear, only blood bursting, only more violent, more crazy, and more violent. He couldn't help but let out a thunderous roar. At that moment, his body directly changed into a fairy ape transformation, and a golden ape appeared that was more majestic than Xuanhuan. Judging from its face, it was much more violent than Xuanhuan. Violence technique. Crackling. It had been a long time since he had used the earthly evil transformation technique. This time, Wu Yu's physical body had reached its limit. His arms became thicker again, and his golden tendons bulged, making him look even more ferocious. At this moment, the 9-direction demon suppression pillar became even thicker in his hand, and the 9-headed dragon was entangled and howling. Boom! 9-direction breaking realm. Under the oppression of the Earth's core realm, the more oppression there was, the more violent Wu Yu's explosion became. At this time, the formation diagram on the 9-direction demon suppression pillar was running wildly. The Dan Yuan plus the physical body, plus the violent technique, was the strongest and most direct collision in history. Xuanhuan also attacked directly. 10,000 mountains gathered in one sword to assist the Earth's core realm. It was about to chop Wu Yu's head. At this moment, Wu Yu suddenly exploded and soared into the sky. At that moment, his stick even tore the restraints of the Earth's core realm. In a critical moment, he and Xuanhuan had a century-like collision. Boom! At that moment, the entire Ascension Hall was swaying, and even a sword blade fell down. The deacons regretted not moving the battle outside. What was the result? At the moment of the head-on collision, everyone thought that Wu Yu would retreat and be seriously injured, but in just such a moment, the winner was decided. It was not Wu Yu, nor the golden ape, who fell to the ground, but Xuanhuan. The 8 Hells Mountain Divine Sword flew out and stabbed in front of Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan fell to the ground fiercely, blood flowing from his arms. After the huge impact, he fainted. And the golden ape roared in the sky, shocking the whole audience. The violent posture made everyone feel scared. It was not until Wu Yu changed back to human form, landed lightly on the ground, and his eyes regained calmness that people no longer felt that fear. The winner was decided, it couldn't be more obvious. But people still found it difficult to accept this fact. Even if Wu Yu challenged the limits of their imagination again and again, they were unwilling to believe that it was not Wu Yu who was defeated in one move, but Xuanhuan, who was ranked 9th on the Xianjian Immortal list. There is no skill, it is a collision of absolute power, like the impact between rhinos, the weak fall to the ground, and the winner is the king. At this moment, the 8 Prisons Mountain Sword is still shaking violently in front of Xuanhuan. Although its value is higher than the 9 Square Demon Pillar, it has also fallen below at this moment, and even opened a gap. As for Xuanhuan, his face has long been pale, and he is shaking with the 8 Prisons Mountain Sword. /U003 sem /U003 e /U003 sem /U003 follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, read first, and grasp the latest information at any time /U003c/m /U003 e /U003c/m /U003e. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 324. A duel of pure strength is simple and crude. The outcome of such a duel is the clearest. There are no skills, loopholes, or weaknesses at all. The only thing that can be proved is that Wu Yu is stronger than Xuanhuan under absolute power. Xuanhuan fell to the ground. Now people are looking at Wu Yu, no doubt extremely shocked. In fact, with Wu Yu, who is at the 6th level of the Golden Core Realm, defeating the 9th level is already beyond the limits of Shushan disciples' imagination. When he crosses 4 levels and defeats Xuanhuan, who is 9th on the Xianjian Immortal ranking, then it's another concept. With this child's talent, after this battle, the results were spread. which was enough to shock the four major sword realms, and even cause discussions among many Xusan sword masters. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. In terms of talent and astonishing degree, judging from his current state, among all his peers and in the entire Shu Mountain, Wu Yu is probably ranked in the top 5. He is just 20 years old, not too old. Big. Except for Wu Yu, anyone else who can achieve this achievement is the descendant of the sword master. This battle's improvement in Wu Yu's status is self-evident. Of course, with the announcement by the master of the Ascension Hall, Wu Yu also gained the status of becoming a Xuanhuan level disciple. His disciple Fu has undergone certain changes and has the qualifications for Wu Yu to enter the Xianjian realm. The Xianjian realm is higher, the disciples are stronger, the aura of heaven and earth is richer, and the various resources in it are also better. Xiao Huanshan was carried away, looking lonely. However, life is like this. A lifetime of glory may become a stepping stone for others, using all the glory in the first half of life to achieve another person's reputation. The more halo Xiao Huanshan has, the more Wu Yu will have at this moment. Therefore, even many Huangjian level disciples came up to congratulate Wu Yu and try to leave a good impression on this future celebrity. Xiao Huanshan and the others had already left, and even many disciples from the Xianjian domain came up to greet them. Wu Yu himself was a little uncomfortable with suddenly becoming a famous person. Wu Yu, hurry up to the domain lord's mansion in the Xianjian region and arrange a cave. From now on, you will be a member of our Xianjian region. I'm so envious. I don't know if it's possible for us to reach the Xianjian territory in the future. We have been in the Yellow Sword territory for more than 50 years, and there seems to be little hope. It is said that Wu Yu was in Huangjianyu for only half a year. He is really as fast as a god. In the midst of the farewells from the Huangjian level disciples and the greetings from the Xuanjian level disciples, Wu Yu was inexplicable and walked from the Yellow Sword region to the Xianjian region through the passage behind the Ascension Hall. His position on Qingtianshu Mountain has been improved again. Looking at it, the Xianjian realm is not larger than the Huangjian realm, and the number of people is much smaller. However, its palaces and buildings are more domineering and sophisticated, with more magic formations and obviously higher levels. There are bustling magic formations everywhere. It is these magic formations that have almost transformed Qingtianshu Mountain into a war fortress. It is hard to imagine that anyone can attack such a force as the Xusan Immortal sect. Surrounded by a group of Xuanjian level disciples, Wu Yu received a new array token. The Xianjian domain lord's mansion arranged for him a cave. Although it was a few hundred kilometers away, it was the worst in the Xianjian domain. The caves will definitely be better than the best ones in Huangjianyu. Among them, Wu Yu also met many Xuanjian level sword cultivators, and several of them were palace masters in the mortal sword domain. In fact, Bailey Fiheng spent most of his time here in the Xianjian domain. For example, the palace owner of the Qingli Sword Palace is beside Wu Yu. I remember that when I first entered Xusan, these palace lord level figures were so superior. In just a few years, they are now Wu Yu's companions. Even almost all the palace lords are not Wu Yu's opponents. Everyone, it's nice to meet you all today. However, after this battle, I still need to rest for a while, so I will say goodbye to you first. After finding his own cave, Wu Yu took the opportunity to get away from the enthusiastic Xusan disciples. Of course, they just let it go and didn't bother Wu Yu too much. They just had to not offend a rapidly rising genius like Wu Yu. Wu Yu still named this new cave abode Kishan Cave Mansion. In the Kishan Cave Mansion, the various cultivation resources and spiritual energy of heaven and earth are much richer than those in the Huangjian domain, which can be considered to be of greater help to Wu Yu. After closing the cave, Wu Yu sat cross-legged in the training room. Wire is in seclusion to digest the inheritance. If she comes out of seclusion, she will definitely be very powerful. Galaxy Sword Master said that she is definitely better than me now, but her identity is nobler than mine. She is the daughter of Qiang Sword Immortal. But you have to be stronger than her in terms of realm and cultivation. It would be a shame to be left behind by her. I just don't know what she went through in the reincarnation cave in Xuanhuan Mountain. Now that she is in retreat, Wu Yu is eager to continue to improve himself rapidly. To become stronger, the first thing is to improve the realm and temper the golden elixir. This is related to the understanding of the Tao, as well as the resources of Yuan Jindan in hand. Yuan Jindan requires more. As for the understanding of the Tao, it can be improved by refining alchemy and drawing magic circles, both of which require a lot of time and materials. The materials also require Yuan Jindan or merit. Other than that, in terms of physical body, it is temporarily impossible to achieve the golden body of Namo Haori King Buddha. The improvement of the magical power of the Great Avenue requires me to improve my realm, or to upgrade to the second level of magical power. This is not yet clear. Can't be anxious. In the end, there are only psychic instruments and Taoism left. In terms of magic weapons, Wu Yu was reluctant to replace the 9 directions demonic pillar, and there might not be one more suitable for him. However, the Yin-Yang Dao sword was much weaker now, and Wu Yu had been eliminated and used by the clone. He thought about it and found that he needs a better sword, at least comparable to Chen Fuiu's Red Shadow Heart Sword and Xiao Huanshan's 8 Prison Mountain Divine Sword. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The most popular skills in Xuanhuan are sword cultivation, and other general qualities are not very high. In terms of sword cultivation, Wu Yu found that although the Tian Yang, Earth Yin, and Void Sword technique was not bad, it was somewhat inferior compared to many Xianji level geniuses. He also needed to practice a stronger sword cultivation technique, otherwise he would not be able to use it alone. With the trick of 9 directions breaking the boundary, it is easy for people to find their weaknesses and defeat them. He did the math. I want 2 swords and 1 sword cultivation technique. With my current level, I will need more than 5,000 yuan of golden elixir at the most, and maybe tens of thousands, in order to find the ultimate magical weapon and technique that I can bear. In addition, all other things require a lot of Yuan Jindan, so in the final analysis, I still lack Yuan Jindan. This is Wu Yu's current dilemma. Cultivation resources are the most important thing. The previous 10,000 yuan golden pills were used a bit boldly, so now there are only 2,000 yuan golden pills, and I have to look sad. I won't go to the demon locking tower, and I won't do the mission for the time being. There are still many strong people in the Xianjian domain, so I can only go to the fighting immortal battlefield. However, he defeated Xiao Huanshan head-on and was witnessed by many people. It is estimated that there are only a handful of people who dare to challenge him. Among them, there are probably even fewer people who are still paying attention to the Battle of Immortals. Even if they go to the Battle of Immortals, they will probably only be able to challenge him. Try your luck. However, Wu Yu couldn't care too much. Go to the Battle of Immortals first and see if you can make some more money. Before that, he went to the Dharma Artifact Hall in the Xianjian domain. I originally planned to go to the Taoist temple to find a good target and then make money. When Wu Yu left the Dharma Palace, he was deeply stimulated and did not even go to the Dao Dharma Hall. In the Magical Weapon Palace, there are countless sword-shaped psychic magical weapons. In the Xianjian domain, even the most inferior magical weapons are worth more than 500 merits. The most common one requires about 1,000 yuan of golden elixir. As for the better one, it is about the same as the Red Shadow Heart Sword and is worth 2,000 yuan of golden elixir. All aspects of cultivating the Tao consume yuan jindan. For Xianjian level disciples, more than 2,000 yuan jindan is already unbearable. Wu Yu browsed through thousands of magic weapon long swords worth 1,000 to 2,000 merits. There were indeed many suitable ones among them, which made him tempted. However, due to the insufficient quantity of Yuan Jindan, he held back for the time being. 2 magic weapons with 2,000 merits are common and require 4,000 gold elixirs. The sword next door is estimated to cost more than 3,000 yuan, so it will require more than 7,000. I have to use these 2,000 to get 7,000 yuan of golden elixirs. Okay. Having roughly determined his target, Wu Yu was ready to leave. Actually, you can take a look at the super spirit magical artifact, Ming Tong said abruptly, frightening Wu Yu. He naturally knows about super spiritual magic weapons. As far as he knows, there are 3 levels of magic weapons, namely ordinary magic weapons, psychic magic weapons and super spiritual magic weapons. Ordinary magical weapons are like black and white Dao swords. They have no intelligence, only a magic circle. Psychic instruments, magical instruments channeling spirits, vaguely produce consciousness, and even joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. Super spiritual magical weapons are on top of psychic magical weapons. Only when the spiritual intelligence of the magical weapon has developed and is as smart as a small beast, and its own magic circle has also reached a very high level, can it be called super spiritual weapon. Spiritual weapon. It is said that most ascetics in the Kanghai realm of Zifu use super spiritual magic weapons. In fact, it is not that the super spiritual magic weapon is necessarily stronger than the psychic magic weapon, but that the super spiritual magic weapon is more mature in intelligence, can better communicate with its owner, can cooperate, and the power it releases will basically be more powerful. Furthermore, the value of the magic weapon does not necessarily determine its strength, such as the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar and the red shadow heart sword. To be honest, although the value and merit of the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar are less than half of the red shadow heart sword, they are comparable to Wu Yu's. The combination of spirit and will can surpass the red shadow heart sword. I probably can't master the super spiritual magic weapon yet. If someone in the Jindan Dao realm could master it, like Xuanhuan Shan, he would have fought with super spiritual weapons long ago. Ming Long said, "You have inherited the inheritance of the immortal. You have more mental ape visions, and your spiritual will is stronger than the ordinary Zifu Kanghai realm. What you lack is just the elixir, so you may not be able to conquer the super spiritual magic weapon." "Are you sure?" Wu Yu asked suspiciously. "Can I trick you? It's boring. Let alone the super spiritual magical weapon, look at the heaven and earth mystic technique above the golden core Dao technique. Other people at the 10th level of the golden core Dao realm may not be able to practice the heaven and earth mystery technique, but now that your spirit and will are getting stronger and your understanding is higher, it may not be impossible. The truth is the same. /U003% /U003E /U003C /Sente /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 325. Anyway, it's in the Magic Instrument Hall of Xianjian Domain. Since he's here, Wu Yu thought it wouldn't be a bad idea to take a look after hearing what Ming Long said. Super spiritual instruments, the level of the instrument array, and even the materials are much higher than those of spiritual instruments. At least 4 spiritual patterns of treasures are needed to be used as the medium and embryo of the instrument array of super spiritual instruments. Generally speaking, the cultivators of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm can master super spiritual instruments and easily overturn the rivers and seas and gallop across the world. In fact, there are not many super spiritual instruments in Xianjian domain, mainly because almost all Xuanjian level disciples cannot control super spiritual instruments. The purpose of displaying some super spiritual instruments here is mainly to guard the hall, and at the same time to encourage the determination of Xuanjian level disciples to impact the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. These super spiritual instruments are basically placed in the most conspicuous position, just inside the main gate of the Magic Instrument Hall. Wu Yu was about to leave the Magic Instrument Hall, so he happened to pass by here. There were about 100 kinds of super spiritual instruments placed in the hall, and more than 95% of them were swords of various types, some thick, some thin, some large, some small, of various colors, and various instrument arrays, with different effects and powers. Standing in this hall of super spiritual instruments, the feeling was suddenly different. Those super spiritual instruments seemed to be a group of living little beasts, and they were very restless. When a stranger stepped in, most of them showed strong hostility, buzzing, and even swinging randomly, provoking Wu Yu. This pressure from all directions could indeed scare most of the Xuanhuan level disciples. The Heavenly Palace Sword is a super spiritual magical weapon. It contains the Heavenly Palace Absolute Formation and the Heavenly Palace Killing Formation, and there are 93 kinds of magical weapon formations. It is especially famous for its great power. The Upper Thunder Sword. A super spiritual magical weapon, it is a sword of thunder that can summon the thunder of the 9 heavens. It contains the Upper Thunder Formation and so on. Although Wu Yu was just taking a quick look, he was still extremely shocked in his heart. Of course, he also had a greater desire. When he saw the value of the super spiritual magical weapons, his face couldn't help but become bitter. He looked at more than 10 kinds of them. Even the worst ones were worth tens of thousands of merits, and the highest ones were even close to 30,000 merits. Now he only has 2,000 yuan jindan in his hand, and it is estimated that he can only buy half a hilt. Generally, the value is equal to its power. The power and function of a 2000 spiritual magical weapon and a super spiritual magical weapon of more than 10,000 are at least 3 or 4 times, or even 5 or 6 times. Tianyi Jun, one of the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea, could almost compete with the Golden Dan Avenue with a spiritual magical weapon. Wu Yu saw the super spiritual instruments, and naturally threw all the spiritual instruments that he had previously chosen behind his mind. In front of these super spiritual instruments, the spiritual instruments that Wu Yu had previously longed for almost became ordinary powder. After going around in a circle, he stopped in front of 2 of the super spiritual instruments. The one stationed here was a disciple of the Earth Sword level. He naturally knew Wu Yu and introduced him a lot along the way. When Wu Yu stopped, he said, the previous users of these 2 swords were a pair of Taoist lovers. Later, they both died in the East China Sea. After several transfers, they returned to Shushan. 1,000 years have passed since then. It is said that this pair of Taoist lovers are very loving. Although their status is very different, they insist on being together. They were once a pair of good stories. They are best at the combination of 2 swords. They are hard to find opponents. They were also a pair of geniuses at that time. Unfortunately, they were calculated by the ghost cultivators. Maybe it was because their respective users were Taoist lovers. The 2 swords fit very well and have some inextricable relationship with each other. Their wills are already super spiritual, so these 2 super spiritual instruments are like 2 loving little beasts, entangled with each other. Their mutual connection is very beneficial to Wu Yu, who owns the yin-yang sword wheel. Only by being closely related and working together can a wonderful combination be formed between closeness. When the Earth Sword level disciple introduced them, Wu Yu was immersed in the introduction of the 2 swords. The sword on the right is slightly longer, half a foot longer than the ordinary magic weapon sword. It is golden yellow mixed with fiery red, like a slender and sharp flame crystal, burning with flames. There is a magic weapon array directly on the hilt. When the magic weapon array rotates, a flame sphere like the sun is embedded in it. It is also swallowing and spitting out flames and spitting out scorching flames. Wu Yu can feel the heat even though he is far away from the flames. It can be seen that its power is extraordinary, more than 10 times that of the Yin-Yang Dao sword. The full name of this long sword is Haoshan Sun Wheel Sword. There are a total of 99 magic weapon arrays on it, including 3 main arrays. The sword on the left is half a foot shorter than the ordinary magic weapon long sword, more like a short sword. This short sword is dark blue, emitting a bright moonlight, like a dark blue gem. There is also a magic weapon array on the hilt. When it rotates, there is a blue full moon inlaid in it, swallowing and spitting out silver moonlight, as quiet as snow. This short sword is called the Moon Dance Clear Sky Sword. Don't look at these two swords as a pair. In fact, they were not forged by one person, and they are not from the same era. It is fate that they can be put together. Therefore, the magic weapon hall puts them together. Because the two swords have the same aura, it is stipulated that they can only be exchanged at the same time. Generally, a pair of Taoist companions are required to take them away. Therefore, the two swords are added together, and a number of merits is set. In other words, these two swords are to be sold in a package. When Wu Yu saw its value, he was still stunned. Adding up 45,000 merits, this price is temporarily unthinkable. Wu Yu has already regretted that he should not have been so bold when he had 10,000 golden pills. Actually, this is a good deal. After all, these two swords, taken apart, are each worth 30,000 yuan of golden elixir. Look at the main magic formations of these two swords. They are really powerful. I also want to get this Haoshan Sun Lun sword. It's a pity that you don't have a Taoist companion. If you enter the Zifakanghai realm in the future and you have a Taoist companion, you might consider it, said the old earth sword level disciple, holding his long beard. He is already this age, and he is not yet a Taoist monk. Honestly, there is the yin-yang sword wheel, so it may not be possible to defeat these two swords at the same time, but you are too poor, haha. Minglong laughed sarcastically again. 45,000 meritorious deeds was an insurmountable gap, so although Wu Yu was a little itchy and felt a bit like he had seen the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar before, after all, he was far from that many meritorious deeds, and there were not that many. The person who was taken advantage of gave him money, so I can only think about this matter for the time being. He couldn't even afford 2,000 psychic instruments. Fortunately, this inspired his determination to go to the battlefield of Immortals, so after leaving the magical artifact hall, he went straight to the battlefield of Immortals, thinking that this time he must catch an unjust and hateful trap. Let's talk after a while. Although it is impossible to collect 45,000, it is still possible to temporarily obtain 7,000 according to the original budget. Although the number of people in the immortal fighting battlefield in the Xianjian domain is less than 1/10 of the Huangjian domain, the scope is larger, and the magic formations supporting the immortal fighting battlefield are more complex and magnificent, making this island in the sky completely suspended in the air, regardless of the Xianjian domain. No matter how high-level disciples bombard them, they won't fall to the ground. Wu Yu is here. As a conspicuous figure, he immediately attracted huge attention when he arrived at the Battle of Immortals. Among the hundreds of Xuanjian-level disciples around him, only 2 or 3 were fighting on the battlefield, and everyone else immediately gathered around. Wu Yu, are you coming to the Battle of Immortals today to play with us old guys? Let's make an agreement first. We think we are no match for you. These old bones cannot stand the torment of you young people. Here today, I just watch the excitement and enjoy my old age, haha. Many Xuanjian-level disciples are already very old. When they reach old age, they have not yet reached the Zifakanghai realm, and their lifespan has stopped at about 300 years. Generally, those who are over 250 years old and have not reached the Zifakanghai realm are basically hopeless. For a cultivator in the golden elixir realm, the first 100 years are considered a young adult, the middle 100 years are considered middle age, and the next 100 years are considered middle age, not as good as old age, until the body dies and the Tao disappears. If you are lucky enough to break through to the Zifakanghai realm, you will have a lifespan of about 400 years. In this regard, the demon clan has a strong advantage. Although its cultivation is slow, once it becomes a demon, its lifespan is generally very long, and thousand-year-old demons can be seen everywhere. This is also the reason why the demon clan can barely compete with the human clan. When Wu Yu came, at least most of the people who greeted him would definitely not dare to make a move with him. After watching the battle between Wu Yu and Xuanhuan, everyone knew that it was not easy to win Wu Yu's money. If you don't take out the bait, most people won't take the bait. The top 8 on the Danyuan Xianjian Immortal list will come out. Wu Yu could only target them. He chatted and laughed with everyone for a while, then went to a battlefield and threw down 2,000 yuan jind and said, "Wu Yu challenges you all. As long as any Xianjian level disciple comes here, Wu Yu will fight." At this time, someone asked, "Have you agreed that even if you are a number 1 in the Xianjian Immortal ranking, you will accept his challenge?" Wu Yu didn't know who was number 1 on the Xianjian Immortal ranking, so he said, "Of course." A gentleman's words are as fast as his horse's whip. Everyone laughed immediately, and one of them said, "Wu Yu, do you know who is number 1 on the Xianjian Immortal ranking?" The list of Xianjian Immortals also changes frequently. Wu Yu really doesn't know who he is now, but from what they said, it seems that the number 1 on the list of Xianjian Immortals is very strong. In other words, does it have a special identity or status? Wu Yu shook his head. When Wu Yu shook his head, they laughed. Young people are just careless and don't understand the enemy, so they go to the battle of immortals like this. If she really comes, Wu Yu will just spend money to buy a lesson and enlightenment. After all, she and Xiao Huanshan are not on the same level. Although Xiao Huanshan's status is similar to him, how can I put it? She has been the favorite of the Shushan Immortal domain since she was a child, and she has only been to the Xianjian domain a few times, so she is probably still practicing in the Shushan Immortal domain. Other than her, Wu Yu can really challenge anyone from 2 to 8 on the Xianjian Immortal ranking. After listening to their discussion, Wu Yu became curious. What kind of existence is this number 1 that is so magical? I'm not in a good state today, and I have some chores that have delayed my time, so I'll update again. However, we can definitely update chapter 5 starting tomorrow. /U003 cent /U003e /U003c /sente /U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 326. It turns out that this person has already stepped into the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. It is said that he will be promoted from the Xianjian realm to the Earth Sword realm in at least half a year. He is not at the same level as many Xianjian level disciples. From what others have said, it seems that this person has a transcendent status at the Xianjian level and is truly the number 1 person in the Xianjian realm. However, the problem is that he has put down his bold words. If he is afraid and emphasizes revision at this time, he will inevitably be laughed at. Of course, he wasn't worried. After all, he had just set up a battlefield to fight the immortals here, and the first person to challenge him was the number 1 in the Xianjian Immortal ranking. But just when Wu Yu had this idea, suddenly a clear female voice came from the sky, which suddenly calmed the battlefield of immortal fighting. The man said, "Who is talking about me? Who wants to challenge me?" In the blink of an eye, a group of people descended from the sky, landing in front of Wu Yu with great momentum. There were about 6 people, all of whom were young ascetics with immature faces. It was obvious at a glance that they had not been practicing for more than 50 years, and they were all talented and intelligent people who could retain such a youthful appearance. The same is true for Wu Yu. It is estimated that within the next 50 years, he will maintain his current appearance of about 17 or 18 years old. These young people are not just ordinary people. Among them, Chen Fuyu and Xiao Huanshan were among them, but judging from their positions, these 2 sons of Shushan Sword Master were also standing on the fringes of the small group of 6 people, and were not considered central figures. Wu Yu glanced over and saw that the 4 men and 2 women were almost all powerful people, and the weakest among them were all above Chen Fuyu. The young men had majestic weapons and passionate Taoism, and the girls were even better. His energy and spirit are at the forefront of the entire Xuanhuan immortal section. His eyes and movements all show that he is of noble origin. Many of the tiny accessories on his body are actually magic weapons that have the effect of protecting the body. But the most outstanding thing is the woman in the center. The woman is not wearing a sword robe, but is wearing a long skirt, with hundreds of flowers blooming on the skirt, lifelike. This woman is a stunning beauty in the world, which can be described as the beauty of the country. Regardless of her figure or face, they are all top choices. Even the skin is as white as snow and as moist as jade, and a red flower on the head is the icing on the cake, making it seem like it was born among hundreds of flowers, with the fragrance of flowers on its body. People are intoxicated. It's just that his eyes are very arrogant, and there is a look of arrogance in his eyes, which makes it difficult for people to approach him. Although the other woman is also a stunning female swordsman, she obviously cannot compare with her. According to previous descriptions from other Xuanhuan domain disciples, this girl was no weaker than Xuanhuan, or even stronger. Her mother was the sword saint Xuanhuan and her father was the sword saint Luo. The mother, sword saint Xuanhuan, was said to be more powerful. He is stronger, has a higher status, and has many cultivation levels that surpass Dongyu sword master. He is the strongest level of Xuanhuan sword master, far beyond what the current Shenzhen Jiao can compare with. She is the number 1 on the list of Xuanhuan Immortals. Her name is MaleProtagonist. She grew up in the Xuanhuan Immortal domain. The first time she was known to everyone was when she directly appeared in the Xuanhuan domain. Sword Master Xuanhuan asked her to directly challenge the Xuanhuan Immortal ranking. At that time, I was ranked 100 on the Xuanhuan Immortal ranking. 10 years later, I have reached the first place in the Xuanhuan Immortal ranking. I have almost entered the realm of Zifukanghai. Such talent is considered excellent. After all, she was only 20 years old like Wu Yu when she first took on the challenge. MaleProtagonist also has a nickname, called Flower Fairy. Except for MaleProtagonist, all the others, except Xuanhuan, are among the top 20 figures on the Xuanhuan Immortal list. They are all young and promising, with noble status. They are at least the sons of senior Tianjian level disciples. It is also true that Xuanhuan in the sword domain, they are a small group headed by MaleProtagonist. Of course, to Wu Yu, they are a group of talented and lucky people who have a profound background in Xuanhuan. The 6 of them were afraid that they were targeting Wu Yu. At this time, MaleProtagonist raised his eyes, looked at Wu Yu with arrogance in his voice, and said, "Before, you said that even the number 1 in the Xuanhuan Immortal ranking would challenge you. Dare to challenge?" Wu Yu looked at Xuanhuan and Xuanhuan. Apparently, they knew that Wu Yu had challenged the Do Immortal battlefield in the Huangjian domain. They knew that Wu Yu was short of money and would come here, so they invited MaleProtagonist to set up an ambush here. He must be taking a breath. Sure enough, Xuanhuan said, "Wu Yu, a manly man, don't lose your integrity and courage in front of 2 weak women. If you spread the word, it will make people laugh." As for Xuanhuan, he looked coldly at Wu Yu, the opponent who had defeated him head-on, with fear in his eyes, but also with strong dissatisfaction and desire to attack. The other 4 people looked at Wu Yu with amusement. The situation suddenly became tense. The Xuanjian level disciples next to them looked at each other. Naturally, they could tell that they were targeting Wu Yu, so someone secretly winked at Wu Yu, telling him not to agree. Unexpectedly, Wu Yu didn't take even a step back and said, "That's right. I'm standing here. Anyone who is a Xuanjian level disciple can challenge me and take away these 2,000 yuan of golden elixirs." The 6 of them couldn't help but laugh. Everyone looked at Wu Yu and then at the bag of Yuan Jin Dan, and they all showed expressions of pity. Xuanhuan smiled and said, "It's obvious that this idiot wants to come to the fighting immortal battlefield to make a fortune, but he is probably too poor and can only afford 2,000 yuan of golden elixir. Poor, pitiful. Wu Yu also laughed, tit for tat, and said, Chen Fuyu, I beat the shit out of you last time. I won you 10,000 yuan of gold elixirs, but I almost spent them all, so you came to give me yuan of gold elixirs again this time. You, Chen Fuyu's eyes revealed murderous intent. The Xuanhuan level disciples were anxious and uneasy. Fortunately, there were several Earth Sword level disciples here in the immortal fighting battlefield. They were all experienced old men. They were already surrounding them. It was forbidden to seriously injure or kill the opponent in the immortal fighting battlefield. They also prevent accidents from happening. However, even the old men at the Earth Sword level are actually afraid of these young people. Firstly, their future achievements will definitely be very high. Secondly, they all have profound backgrounds. Once the people behind them get angry, the Earth Sword level disciples will have to rest. Vegetable. At this time, Mu Lingch looked silent, took out a sumuru bag, threw it to the presiding Earth Sword level disciple, glanced at Wu Yu, and said, there are 10 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills in it, if you beat me, it's yours. Kanghai Yuan Kai pill. This is an extremely high-level elixir. It requires a strong elixir refining ability, and it can only be forged at the late stage of Zifu Kanghai realm. This elixir is already above the level of ordinary golden elixirs and is called the best panacea. One Kanghai Yuan Kai pill can provide vast spiritual energy, which is equivalent to more than 1,000 gold pills. Of course, its effectiveness is also terrifying. If you are not in the Kanghai realm of Zifu, you cannot bear it at all. In the Xianjian domain, it takes 1,000 meritorious deeds to exchange for a Kanghai Yuan Kai pill. Mu Lingch had a lot of money and casually took out 10 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills, which were worth 10,000 yuan jindan, far more than Wu Yu's 2,000 yuan jindan. According to the rules of the Battle of Immortals, the bets of both sides should be equal, so Mu Lingch spent an additional 8,000 yuan of golden elixir. She said, the remaining 8,000 yuan of golden elixir will buy you to kowtow 3 times to Chen Fuyu and Xuanhuan to apologize. Wu Yu had never seen the best spiritual elixir before, so he was stunned for a moment. In fact, he was now immersed in the art of alchemy, and a completed elixir of Kanghai Yuan Kai Dan was of great research value to him. However, he kowtows to apologize, and he says, then I will get 8 coins back. I don't need to take advantage of this. Chen Fuyu sneered, are you afraid of losing? In battle, there will be victory or defeat, and victory or defeat is a common thing for military strategists. Why should we be afraid? Wu Yu admired Ling Chei's demeanor and power, and knew that she was actually half of the Kanghai mirror of Zifu. He only has a 50% chance of winning against an opponent of this level. The fighting team is a way for him. If he is afraid of fighting and shrinks, that is not him, Wu Yu. Okay, step back. Mu Lingch waved her hands impatiently, asking Xuanhuan and the others to get out of the battlefield. Her long skirt was swinging in the strong wind, and the fragrance of flowers was fragrant. Petals were flying around her delicate body. She was in this magnificent scenery, the beauty is as beautiful as the woman in the painting. But the look was really arrogant, which ruined the style of the painting. She did not intend to take back the 8 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills, but was ready to take action. She stared at Wu Yu and said, Wu Yu, I know that you have been in the limelight recently and stepped on 2 of my friends as stepping stones. It has created your momentum at this moment. Today, I, Mu Lingch, am here to tell you that in this vast world, there are mountains outside the mountains, and there are people outside the people. Don't be complacent and tyrannical after you have achieved some small achievements. Don't treat others badly. Take it seriously. Wu Yu calmly confronted Mu Lingch and said, I know this truth better than you, so why do you need you to teach me? I just want to vent my anger on your companion, don't say it in such a high-sounding way. Humph, You don't know what's good and what's good, you really are a wild man. From these last 4 words, Wu Yu understood deeply that those of them who grew up in the heavenly sword domain, or even the Xuanhuan immortal domain, never paid attention to the Xuanhuan disciples who entered the mortal sword domain and then rose all the way up. In my heart, only they and their parents are the real Xuanhuan immortal sect and the orthodox ones. People like Wu Yu are also wild men in the countryside. As for the cultivators outside the Xuanhuan immortal sect, such as the Tongtian sword sect, the Southwest Taoists, etc., they are even more contemptuous of them. Mu Lingch took action immediately. She was surprised that unlike other sword cultivators, although she took action, she did not draw out her sword. Instead, it flew directly into the air. Her elixir surged, and a whirlwind was set off on her body. Suddenly, hundreds of flowers bloomed, and countless under the influence of the strong wind, the petals flew all over the sky in an instant. In a short time, they completely enveloped Mu Lingch and Wu Yu. Wu Yu suddenly came into a sea of flowers. Looking around, the whole world is a sea of flowers. The rich floral fragrance hits your nostrils, and when you take a gentle breath, you will feel like you are ascending to immortality. This fighting method is very special. However, after being intoxicated by the fragrance of flowers, Wu Yu suddenly realized, this may be a kind of magical power. \U003 cent \U003e \U003c /sente \U003e. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 327. When Wu Yu realized this, he was completely surrounded by a sea of rolling flowers. Moving forward at this moment, he thought that these sea of flowers were just a way to cover up Mu Lingch's position and cover up his sword attack. He was probably paying attention to Mu Lingch's position at all times and was ready to break through the sea of fire and fight with him at any time. But when the fragrance of flowers hit his nostrils, Mu Lingch made no move. When he realized that the sea of flowers was a kind of magical power, it was already too late. What Mu Lingch dealt with him was the sea of flowers itself. To be more precise, the true essence of her great power lies in scent. Wu Yu has never seen that smell is also an attack. This is not just a matter of holding his breath. He needs to completely cut off the connection with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and it is probably possible to reduce his breathing, but that will affect the recovery of his elixir. Replenish. But this was the first battle, and it was too late when he realized it. Before the battle, he inhaled a lot of fragrance. From the moment it started to take effect, his realization and spirit began to blur. The fragrance was like a poison, and instantly invading his mental will, he quickly became drowsy. Because he didn't know enough about Mu Lingch, he felt top-heavy for a while. Not long after, Wu Yu suddenly lost consciousness and fainted on the ground. Later, Wu Yu learned that Mu Lingch's magical power was called the illusion of hundreds of flowers. No living thing in the world could resist the fragrance of hundreds of flowers. On the battlefield, it only takes one moment to faint and it would be equivalent to losing one's life. Call. The illusion of hundreds of flowers suddenly dissipated, and with a plop, Wu Yu fell to the ground, his eyes closed tightly, and he had lost his mind. In front of Wu Yu, Mu Lingch looked aloof, smiled coldly, and said contemptuously, "Vulnerable." While speaking, as the flowers condensed into a sword made of petals in his hand, Mu Lingch moved over, pointing the blade at Wu Yu. "Junior sister Mu, destroy his golden elixir," Chen Fuyu said excitedly. The other 4 people were laughing. In fact, the result of the battle was not at all beyond their expectations. Wu Yu was defeated, alas. Indeed, no one can create miracles all the time. His ability to defeat Xiao Huanshan is beyond our imagination. Under the law of heaven, everyone is immortal. Wu Yu's legend almost stops here. Next, he has to adjust his mentality in order to make progress. Like a soaring bird, it was shot down. Mu Lingch moved quickly, but at this time, the Earth Sword level disciple in charge hesitated and intercepted him in front of him, saying, Wu Yu has been defeated. You have won this battle. The winner will be determined. Don't destroy the battle, the rules of the fairy battlefield. Mu Lingch raised her eyebrows and said arrogantly, You dare to offend me. The Earth Sword level disciple looked helpless and said, Of course I don't dare, but to hold this position, I have to be worthy of the immortal sex trust in me. Please don't embarrass me and others, junior sister Mu. After he finished speaking, several other Earth Sword level disciples also intercepted in front of Mu Lingch, preventing her from continuing to target Wu Yu. Indeed, the winner had been decided, and she could not do anything else. Xuanhuan said angrily, You guys, do you believe that my father will tell you to get out right away? His father is the domain lord of the Xianjian domain. Before he finished speaking, Wu Yu had gradually woken up at this time. The psychedelic anesthesia of Beiwa fantasy only lasted for a while. After waking up, there would be no sequelae. However, if he had fainted for this period of time, he would have been caught if no one had intercepted him. Killed, so Wu Yu must have been defeated in this battle. Oops. Wu Yu stood up, with some cold sweat on his forehead. He finally figured it out, and couldn't help but sigh that Mu Lingch's magical power was really powerful, and he directly crushed him. There are winners and losers in battles. As for defeat, Wu Yu admitted it. This did not affect his state of mind. He had suffered more defeats in the supreme hunting ground. Mu Lingch wanted to defeat him, but it was not that easy. However, when he found that several Earth Sword level seniors were standing in front of him, and Mu Lingch and others looked evil, Wu Yu knew what was going on. These people wanted to attack him after the winner was decided. This was a grudge. Wu Yu wrote it down. My defeated general still has the nerve to wake up. Mu Lingch glanced at him and moved the corners of her mouth, showing her disdain for Wu Yu. The frightened hearts of other Xuanjian level disciples finally calmed down. They actually didn't want anything to happen to Wu Yu. Chen Fuyu and the others finally let out a bad breath, so naturally they laughed at each other. Compared with junior sister Mu, Wu Yu is far behind. He doesn't know how high the sky is. It's really embarrassing. Fortunately, he still thinks he is a genius. Today, junior sister Mu has made him understand what it means to be an outsider. Wu Yu was still calm in his heart. The defeat was nothing, but he lost the only 2000 yuan golden elixir in his hand. He felt a little distressed. At this time, the sword-level disciple had handed over all the bets to Mu Lingch and said, Fight, it's over, these are your spoils. Mu Lingch stretched out her slender fingers and first retracted her sumuru bag, then pinched Wu Yu's sumuru bag. She opened it on the spot, took control of the 2000 yuan golden elixir inside, and sucked it out. The yuan jindan flew like petals in her hand, and then she flicked it gently, and the 2000 yuan jindan immediately flew out in all directions, shining with golden light, and fell like a downpour, probably landing in the mortal sword region. I can have as much of this crap as I want. Mu Lingch rolled her eyes at Wu Yu and said lightly. 2000 yuan of golden elixir is actually quite a lot. She wanted to drive Wu Yu crazy with these little tricks, but this approach would only make Wu Yu think she was childish. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Chen Fuyu and the others, on the other hand, applauded Mu Lingch's humiliating move. They wanted to see Wu Yu suffer and regret. Unfortunately, Wu Yu was still very calm inside. Sometimes his mentality had little to do with his origin. Now Wu Yu's horizons have also improved. Well, coupled with the training in the royal family and fighting at the bottom, his mentality is much better than that of Mu Lingch and others. Let's go, This person is no longer worthy of your attention, Mu Lingch said to his companions. It's so cool to win and leave. Okay, it's said that the Earth Sword domain is conducting a challenge on the Earth Sword Immortal list. Let's go and observe. Let's go together. Chen Fuyu and the others were in a group, flying in the air with their swords, but they did not even glance at Wu Yu, and disappeared from Wu Yu's eyes in the blink of an eye. Although they are at the Xianjian level, as they grew up in the Heavenly Sword domain and the Shushan Immortal domain, they have the right to travel throughout the Qingtian Shushan mountain. They can be regarded as a group of people who grew up close to the Heavenly Palace. However, they are still incomparable to Nangang Wei. After they left, many Xuanjian level disciples came forward to comfort Wu Yu. Most of them entered the Shushan Immortal sect from the outside and then promoted from the Mortal Sword domain to the Xianjian domain, so they sympathized with Wu Yu's experience. I also feel the same helplessness in my heart. Don't be discouraged, practice steadily, and your future achievements will definitely be no worse than theirs. From today onwards, the news that Wu Yu has been soaring all the way, but failed here at Mu Lingch, will indeed spread throughout Shu Mountain. However, Wu Yu was still calm. What he was concerned about now was not the defeat, but the fact that the startup capital was gone. Now, the 2,000 yuan golden elixir is gone. Not to mention the 45,000 yuan golden elixir, even the 7,000 yuan golden elixir is far from enough for me. Without these Yuanjin elixirs, I am afraid that my cultivation will stagnate and not be as fast as before. This is a problem for him. Saying goodbye to everyone, he planned to go back to Kishan Cave Mansion to think about it carefully. However, he suddenly heard someone calling his name on the road. He turned around suddenly and saw a figure in the clouds and mist. The man was wearing a sword robe and was surrounded by stars. There were stars flowing between his eyes, giving him a sense of transcendence. This person is naturally the Galaxy Sword Saint Shenzhen Jiao. Sword Master, what do you want me to do? He appeared here in Huangjianyu, and he must have come specifically to see him. Wu Yu thought that the Wushan Blood Kai's curse seal had made progress. Shenzhen Jiao asked, I just saw that you were defeated. How did you feel? Wu Yu was startled for a moment. He didn't expect him to ask such a question, so he answered from the bottom of his heart and said, I have suffered many defeats. The only way is to have victory and defeat. Shenzhen Jiao nodded. He didn't worry about this issue, as long as Wu Yu didn't feel disappointed. The Earth Sword Immortal ranking battle is currently going on in the Earth Sword realm. Xingyu has been fighting recently. You want to go and see it? With your current level, it will be good for you to see the battle in the Zifukanghai realm, Shenzhen Jiao said. Wu Yu didn't expect that he would personally take him to participate in such a grand event. Shenzhen Jiao is now the Shushan Sword Master and has the right to take anyone to the Qingtian Shushan. As long as he is willing, he can take Wu Yu to the Shushan Immortal realm. Of course Wu Yu immediately agreed to such a good thing. Anyway, he had just lost Yuan Jindan, so he didn't have much idea about his future plans for the time being. Just go with me. Shenzhen Jiao walked forward with his sword behind his back, and Wu Yu immediately followed behind him. Shenzhen Jiao looked at the Yin-Yang Dao sword at his feet and said, compared to your level, this kind of psychic magical weapon second rate. Wu Yu chuckled, he was also striving for something better. However, if you enjoy the process of getting it, you will find that things that are easy to get are not so precious. Shenzhen Jiao said no more and took Wu Yu to the Qingtian Shu mountain. He did not need a passage at all. He took Wu Yu directly through the barriers of the Xian Sword realm and the Earth Sword realm. When passing the barrier, he stretched out his hand to transform into a ball of light, shrouding Wu Yu in it, and then dragged Wu Yu through it easily. When he arrived at the Earth Sword territory, looking around, he saw that the Earth Sword territory was actually more small, but everything about it has been greatly upgraded compared to Xianjian domain. The Earth Sword domain is already considered to be the entire mountainside of Qingtian Shu mountain. Wu Yu looked down and saw that the thousands of miles of mountains and rivers under Shu Mountain were already very small. From this position, even the entire mortal sword domain didn't look that big. The aura of the earth sword domain is rich, just like a fairy palace. The aura of heaven and earth turned into mist is everywhere. There are many mysterious magic formations on the mountain walls and in the void. Many palaces are suspended directly in the void, which is extremely exquisite. It is said that there are not many disciples at the earth sword level, only about 700 or 800, and even fewer disciples at the heavenly sword level, only about 100. Those who can reach the earth sword level are more than 1,000,000 people in Xuanhuan. On the other side, the Battle of the Earth Sword Immortal ranking is taking place on the Fighting Immortal battlefield in the Earth Sword domain. /U003% /U003E /U003C /Sente /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 328. Although the entire Earth Sword realm is much smaller than the Xian Sword realm, the immortal fighting field is larger and more stable than the Xian Sword realm. The magic formation that stabilizes the immortal fighting field is more complicated. I am afraid it must be at the Xuan Sword Master level. Even higher, it is possible to draw such a complex magic circle. In order to prevent the battle of the Earth Sword level disciples from destroying other parts of Qingtian Xuan, most of the power generated by their battles was born by this magic circle. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The Battle of Immortals is a platform similar to the battlefield of life and death, like a platform made of metal. The Battle of the Earth Sword Immortal ranking is more important than usual, so everyone withdraws from the Battle of Immortals. Yu Jianfei is on the Battle of Immortals. Appearance War. Wu Yu looked around and saw about 500 people in his field of vision, indicating that most of the Earth Sword level disciples had already arrived. Wu Yu was only at the 6th level of the Golden Cordeo realm, so he should stay in the Yellow Sword realm. But when he came to the Earth Sword realm, all he saw were the existences of the Zifukanghai realm, and he was a little shocked for a while. Even in the entire Divine Continent, the cultivators in the Zifukanghai realm are considered to be among the strongest. The leaders of the ordinary 3, 4, and 6 sects have just arrived in the Zifukanghai realm and are even weaker than Shenzingyu. The elites of Xusan are all in front of you. In a place like Earth Sword territory, looking down, there is always a feeling that even mortal sword territory is like ants. The arrival of Wu Yu and Shenzhenjiao naturally caused a sensation. After all, this combination is a bit strange. If Shenzhenjiao accepts a disciple, it would make sense. The key is that Shenzhenjiao does not accept Wu Yu. Not only did he not accept it himself, he also refused to allow others to accept it. The Galaxy Sword Master has arrived. People looked at him with admiration. This Galaxy Sword Master is the youngest one today, but his strength is not the weakest. Wu Yu also received the attention of hundreds of Earth Sword level disciples. This boy is Wu Yu. He broke into the mysterious sword realm. He was only at the 6th level of the Golden Core realm. However, he defeated Xiaohuan Shan, who was at the 10th level of the Golden Core realm and 9th on the Mysterious Sword Immortal ranking. He once performed outstandingly in the 10,000 Swords Immortal ranking. It is said that he received the inheritance from a man called Change Taoist. He has great potential. Shenzhenjiao once wanted to accept him as his disciple. It's indeed very good, but I just heard that he just lost to Mu Lingch. Aren't Mu Lingch and the others there? Wu Yu also saw that among the surrounding group of sword-level disciples, there were also young cultivators, such as Mu Lingch and Xiaohuan Shan, who had just arrived and were talking happily. Suddenly, when he saw Shenzhenjiao bringing Wu Yu here, his face suddenly turned ugly. Of course, in front of Shenzhenjiao, they did not dare to talk nonsense, and they only dared to cast provocative looks at Wu Yu. It was provocation, contempt, and ridicule. However, Wu Yu's focus was on the other three people. They were three middle-aged monks, two men and one woman. They were majestic and transcendent. They were all frightening characters. Wu Yu and them looking at each other would cause strong oppression, causing him to quickly look away. The three people were talking to Shen Xinjiao. Shen Tianke is here too. It's really a lively day today, a beautiful woman in palace attire chuckled. Shen Xinyu has been challenged several times recently, so he naturally wants to come and take a look, a tall, burly, bald man said. There is another person who is silent, hiding in a black robe, and has a thin figure. These three are Sword Saint Xuanhuan, Sword Saint Dongyu and Sword Saint Red Shadow, Shen Xinjiao told Wu Yu softly. Such a coincidence, it turns out that they are the elders of Mulingch, Xiaohuan Shan and Chen Fuyu. There are more than 20 Shushan sword saints in the Shushan Immortal section. Unexpectedly, 4 of them appeared in the Battle of the Sword Immortal ranking, which is quite grand. Many Earth Sword level disciples were obviously extremely excited, even particularly excited, wanting to perform well in front of the Sword Master and gain recognition. With these 4 Sword Masters present, today's battle seems to be particularly intense. Wu Yu was considered a junior here, so he stood behind Shen Xinjiao, watching the battle intently and not taking the initiative to speak. He noticed that there was a colorful ancient bell hanging on the battlefield of Immortals. The ancient bell was colorful and changing light. He could vaguely see the operation of the top magic weapon array. The magic weapon array would even change into a pair of eyes. He was curious. Staring around, like a little beast with consciousness. It's a super spiritual weapon. Wu Yu was determined quickly. Judging from the setting of the 10,000 Swords Immortal ranking, there must be hundreds of Earth Sword level disciples. As long as they can ring this colorful ancient bell, they are eligible to participate in the challenge. Wu Yu remembered that the Earth Sword Immortal ranking would rank the top 100. If Shen Xinyu is often challenged, it means that she ranks relatively low on the Earth Sword Immortal ranking, probably between 80 and 100. Now, on the Battle of Immortals battlefield, 2 cultivators from the Kanghai realm of Zifa were fighting fiercely. Their magical powers were world famous, and their swordsmanship was astounding. They were more explosive and more powerful. Wu Yu was dazzled for a moment, and he only felt that these 2 people, it is so powerful that it is even difficult to see its appearance clearly. Brother, Shen Xinyu heard the noise and hurriedly came over with his sword from the preparations for the battle. When he saw Shen Xinjiao, she became like a little girl, jumping up and down happily, but when she saw Wu Yu, she coughed 2 times. With a mature attitude, he twisted his delicate body and wielded a sword, and said, Wu Yu, you are here too. I just heard that you were defeated by a girl. My sister is very angry. Sure enough, the news spread quickly. Wu Yu smiled lightly. A defeat was a defeat, he admitted. I feel relieved when you look like this. Shen Xinyu was also afraid that he would collapse, but Wu Yu didn't seem to be affected at all, so she felt more relieved. She also looked at the battle on the field and said, I have defeated 3 people in a row. I guess there will be fewer people who challenge me next time. Brother, it's all because of your reputation. They all want to gain a sense of presence by defeating me. Woolen cloth. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Shen Xinjiao didn't pay much attention to her coquettishness, and looked around, as if he was looking at something or waiting for something. Wu Yu did not say anything, and was completely immersed in the battle on the Battle of Immortals. Watching the battle in the Kanghai realm of Zi Mansion was a hard-won opportunity. He tried his best to gain as much as possible, which would be beneficial to his tempering of golden elixirs. Greater good. Now he is indeed far behind others in terms of realm. The 2 masters of the Kanghai realm of Zi Mansion have clean and neat moves, and their Taoist skills are mysterious. They are probably the legendary heaven and earth mysteries. Their every move has a greater connection with the heaven and earth, and the movements are more powerful. One of them is good at storms. Therefore, the whole place was raging in a storm, and if it weren't for the stability of the magic circle on the Battle of Immortals, it would have been torn apart long ago. Boom boom boom. The mysterious Taoist techniques and incredible magical powers made Wu Yu feel thrilling. Although I have the treasure of an immortal on the road to spiritual cultivation, I am still a beginner. I must not be impatient or arrogant. Watching strong men fight fiercely made it easier for Wu Yu to calm down his restless heart. Although he had not made great progress in the Tao, at least his pursuit of the Tao had stabilized a lot. A fierce battle ended with the challenger's defeat, but the challenger, a member of the Earth Sword Immortal ranking, was also exhausted. However, after being challenged and remaining on the list of Earthly Sword Immortals, everyone still cheered for him. The scene was very tense, and everyone was speechless. Then in an orderly manner, 3 more people rang the colorful ancient bell one after another, and got the opportunity to challenge. The opponents they chose were basically ranked 90th on the Earth Sword Immortal list. Above, Shenzingyu ranked 92, which was right at the bottom of the Earth Sword Immortal ranking. In the next 3 battles, only one of them was a victory for the challenger. Wu Yu watched 4 battles in a row. It can be said that he gained a lot and had a lot of fun. Shenzhen brought him here today, which indeed helped him somewhat. He could not wait to practice cross-legged on the spot, use these new insights to temper the golden elixir, and integrate these Tao into the golden elixir. After the 4 battles, Wu Yu was still hungry and eagerly waiting for the next battle. However, perhaps because the challenger was wary or unprepared, no one went up to ring the colorful ancient bell. Start the challenge. Everyone was waiting. The strange thing is that Shenzhen and the others did not announce the end of the Earth Sword Immortal ranking challenge. Shenzhen closed his eyes and rested, but the Xuanhuan Sword Master, Red Shadow Sword Master and Dongyu Sword Master were a little strange, as if they were waiting for something. Brother, why don't you end it? Shenzhen asked. Generally speaking, the Earth Sword Immortal list has a relatively small number of people and is not that complicated. Every time it is challenged, everyone who wants to challenge participates. When no one challenges anymore, the external challenge is ended first, and then the internal challenge is started, and the Earth Sword is replaced. Ranking on the Immortal list. Shenzhen wanted to move forward to a dozen places, so as not to have a bunch of people challenge her every time. Wu Yu didn't think much about it, but Shenzhen asked about it. He was also paying attention to the matter. It seemed that other sword-level disciples were also watching around, encouraging others to challenge. No one wants to challenge anymore? Anyone above the 3rd level of Zifukanghai realm has a chance to win, someone said. However, still no one came forward. It's finally over. Shenzhen stretched his body with a lazy posture. Suddenly, Wu Yu felt a throbbing feeling in his heart. Maybe it was a kind of perception in the dark. He couldn't help but look towards the sky. At the end of the sky, there was a barrier, which led to the Heavenly Sword domain. The Heavenly Sword realm is already considered to be the middle and high part of the Qingtian Shu Mountain, second only to the immortal realm of the Shu Mountain, and is also very close to the sky. Suddenly, he saw the barrier in the sword field that day, and a burst of colorful fire suddenly appeared. A group of 9 color flames passed through the barrier, and like a meteor in the sky, it rushed towards the ground and fell, with rapid momentum. By this time, everyone felt it and looked up. In fact, as soon as he raised his head, the 9-colored firelight fell on the Battle of Immortals, next to the colorful ancient clock. Wu Yu suddenly felt suffocated. In the firelight, I saw the outline of a tall woman, who seemed vaguely familiar. There will be updates before 2200 hours in the evening. /U003 cent /U003e /U003c /Sente /U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 329. The goddess suddenly descended from the heavenly sword domain with a huge force. The nine-color fireball was like the wings of a giant bird, spraying fire to the left and right. The scorching breath caused the surrounding sea of fire to spurt out, and the temperature rose sharply. Vaguely, everyone saw a tall woman in the fireball. This person was majestic, suppressing the heroes, and was really domineering. Who is this person from the heavenly sword region? She didn't go through the passage, but broke through the barrier. So which sword master level sent her here? The nine-color fire quickly attracted the attention of all the sword-level people, and even the four sword masters. Naturally, she did not disappoint everyone's curiosity. When she came to the side of the colorful ancient clock, the nine-color fire light on her body was quickly recovered, as if it had been swallowed into the body, nothing remained. Suddenly, a peerless thing appeared. The beauty is displayed in front of everyone. This beauty is slender and tall, close to the height of Wu Yu's eyes. She wears a fiery red sword robe flying in the wind. Although it is wide, it can't hide her exquisite figure. The sword robe is embroidered with colorful flying phoenixes, which adds to the three-dimensional beauty. Points of domineering. Outside the sword robe, on a pair of white catkins, the firelight was flowing, and if there were flaming birds, they were entangled in his hands and screamed. Looking further up, you can see the long black hair like a waterfall. The black hair is flying, and the ends of the hair are constantly flashing with colorful firelight. It is so gorgeous, which adds to the beauty of this beauty. However, what really shocked Wu Yu and took his breath away was that face. As the saying goes, beauties in the world are all different in beauty, but there are always some that can overwhelm other beauties in comparison with each other, such as pursuing Mulange, who has many friends, loses a third of her luster in comparison with this beauty and becomes a foil like a green leaf. The bright eyes, beautiful nose, cherry lips, and willow eyebrows are all perfect. When combined, they have a meaning that ordinary people don't have, making it still the most stunning one among thousands of flowers. Such a beauty, with an exquisite figure and mature charm. With just a touch of pink and white, she is already the most gorgeous. Her eyes and movements are all intoxicating. Such appearance reminded Wu Yu of the 9 Immortals. He couldn't help but wonder how there could be such a beauty in this world. A woman so beautiful that she resembles the 9 Immortals. However, her beauty is different from that of the 9 Immortals. Although the appearance is similar, the 9 Immortals are as gentle as water, like the clear spring in the mountains, refreshing the heart and mind. As for this beauty, her eyes are like fire, she is naturally noble, and her temperament is aloof. Although they look similar, if they stand next to each other, they will never be considered similar. This is the difference in temperament. In front of the heroes, she showed no fear at all. Her face was calm, but it was like a volcano was buried in it, and her eyes seemed to be about to explode at any time. The accumulation of countless resources allowed her to surpass the ordinary at this moment. The temperament of life, regardless of strength, as long as you stand here, you are the core of the crowd. In Wu Yu's eyes, she was like a legendary fairy beast, like a fire phoenix soaring from the fire, leading the world with the posture of an emperor. Of course, Wu Yu was absolutely certain of her identity. She is Nangang Wei. She has grown up, almost 20 years old. When Wu Yu first met her, she was still a little girl. Her eyes and demeanor showed her immaturity. Now when she appeared in front of Wu Yu again, she had grown up and matured. She had changed from a child to a woman. No matter which direction it is, there are earth-shaking changes. Wu Yu never thought that he would meet her again under such circumstances. What to say? He stared at Nangang Wei, who was completely different from before, and was stunned for a moment, not knowing how to speak. She has changed a lot. Shen Xingyu has seen her before, but now she doesn't know who this person is. Wu Yu finally understood why Shen Xingyu suddenly brought him here intentionally. It was not to let him watch the sword-level disciples fight. The real reason was because of her. And the 4 sword masters appearing here are probably because they heard the news that Nangongwei will appear here today. Who is this beauty? At this moment, many people have this question in their minds. In an instant, the 3 sword masters headed by Xuanhuan sword master, except Shen Xinjiao, all appeared next to Nangongwei. They first smiled at Nangongwei. Among them, Xuanhuan sword master smiled and introduced, "I believe that everyone is curious about her identity, so I won't tell you directly. The person in front of you is named Nangongwei, and she is the daughter of the ruler of Shu Mountain, one of the 7 immortals of Shu Mountain, Qiang Sword Immortal. She has not appeared anywhere else in Shushan for 19 years. Today, she challenges the Earth Sword Immortal ranking for the first time, which is an eye-opener for everyone." When these words were spoken, even if there were only a few hundred people, it caused an uproar. The 7 immortals of Shushan are the guardians and controllers of this vast immortal section. They are high above, the ancestors of all disciples, and the goals that people aspire to strive for. Any one of the 7 immortals of Shushan is a very important figure in the entire divine continent. Most of them have no Taoist companions and no heirs. Therefore, everyone deeply understood that the woman in front of them was undoubtedly the luckiest person in the entire Shushan immortal sect, and she was naturally the young man with the highest status in the entire immortal section. Even the sword master of Shushan had to speak to her politely. This kind of treatment was what Xiao descendants of sword masters like Huan Shan and Mu Lingch were completely incomparable. Therefore, when they heard the news, even Mu Lingch and the others showed envy on their faces. After today, Nangongwei officially appears. Within one day, she can become a man of influence that shocks the entire divine continent. Such an identity is a bit like Zhu Ying. Of course, at the age of 19, she challenged the Earth Sword Immortal ranking, which undoubtedly shows that she has at least achieved the cultivation level of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. The comparison between this level and age has surpassed that of Shen Xinjiao back then. In terms of genius, he is definitely the number 1 in Shushan. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Now everyone has not seen Nangongwei's performance, but in fact they know in their hearts that the Qiang Sword Immortal made her debut on the Earth Sword Immortal list today, undoubtedly to shock the audience. While everyone was amazed and talking, Wu Yu's world was quiet. Maybe Nangongwei didn't see him, so there was no expression on his face. It could be seen that maybe it was the hard experience in the Samsara cave in Shushan that made him. Her expression became much colder and she was not as lively and cute as before, which made Wu Yu a little uncomfortable. He could roughly feel that Nangongwei had indeed entered the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. This Shushan reincarnation cave is so effective that she surpassed me and rushed to the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm in such a short period of time. It's really incredible. Wu Yu felt emotional. He had never thought that not only would she get the inheritance from his ancestors surpassed Wu Yu by so much in terms of realm. Wu Yu went from the 1st level to the 6th level of Jindan Avenue, which was already considered super high speed. She was even faster, which was incredible. Of course, Wu Yu was very happy for her that she could achieve this. In my impression, the girl who was timid and fearful no longer seemed to have to protect herself. She wants to challenge the Earth Sword Immortal ranking. It should be her mission. I'd better not let her see it first, so as not to distract her. Wu Yu thought about this and quietly hid behind Shen Xinjiao, using his body to block the Nangongwei's sight. At this time, Nangongwei didn't say much. She walked over to the colorful ancient clock, flicked her fingers, and with a buzzing sound, the ancient clock rang. With such ease, even the eyes of several sword masters showed admiration. Congratulations, the ancient bell is ringing. Wei-er, you can choose your opponent. Xuanhuan sword master smiled broadly. She was always cold and strict with her daughter, but she greeted Nangongwei with a smile. This made Mu Lingch see she was very uncomfortable and slightly hostile to Nangongwei. On the other hand, Chen Fuyu, Xuanhuan Shen, and the other four men looked straight, probably thinking that there could be such a perfect woman in the world. After Shuohua Sword Master finished speaking, Dongyu Sword Master said, "You can choose an opponent. If you are after 90, 91 and 95 are currently injured, and you can choose any of the rest." For a moment, everyone was suffocated, especially the few who were easily selected. Then 92 Nangongwei opened her red lips lightly and said a number amidst everyone's nervous mood. For a moment, everyone looked over. Me, Shen Xingyu's face suddenly turned bitter. It was obvious that Nangongwei had chosen it at random, but it was just such a coincidence. When Shen Xingyu became the focus of everyone's attention, Nangongwei finally raised his head on the battlefield of immortal fighting and looked in the direction of Wu Yu. Wu Yu was standing behind Shen Xinjiao. He was not sure if Nangongwei had seen him. Shen Xingyu was not afraid. After being accidentally selected, she risked her life, flew away, and quickly landed on the Battle of Immortals, face to face with Nangongwei. When Wu Yu looked again, Nangongwei's eyes had fallen on Shen Xingyu. She looked at Shen Xingyu, slightly lost in thought. "Junior sister Nangong, please." Shen Xingyu stepped back a distance. She did feel that the woman in front of her looked a bit familiar, but she just couldn't connect with the little girl back then. "Yes. Please." Nangongwei's response was also concise and powerful. Under the expectation of everyone, the fight between the two beautiful women was about to break out. "Why don't you let her see you?" Shen Xinjiao turned around and asked. Let her finish the fight. Wu Yu also wanted to see how much progress Nangongwei had made over the years. When the words just fell, Nangongwei and Shen Xingyu, who were facing each other, had already taken out their magical weapons. Among them, Shen Xingyu held a long sword forged from blue star steel. The long sword was as gorgeous as the stars in the sky. At this moment he fought slightly in his hands, showing a strong fighting spirit. There was a dense array of magic weapons on it, with more than 80 of them. It was obviously a super spiritual magic weapon. Wu Yu remembered that Shen Xingyu's sword was named Tianyan Meteor Sword, and its value in the Palace of Magical Weapons was 30,000 merit. And it is extremely suitable for Shen Xingyu. Holding this sword in his hand, Shen Xingyu floats like a meteor. /U003 cent /U003E /U003C /Sente /U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 330. This is definitely a wonderful battle. At least everyone present thinks so. Even the sword saints watched carefully, wanting to get a more thorough understanding of the daughter of Qiang's sword immortal. Wu Yu looked more at Nangongwei. Now Nangongwei was holding a magic sword with a mixture of gold and red. The hilt of the sword looked like a pair of wings. A bloodline in the center of the blade extended from the hilt to the tip of the sword, as if there was real blood flowing in it. The blade was also made of fiery red steel feathers, and Nangongwei was like catching a flying bird. I vaguely heard others talking and said, "This sword is called the Red Phoenix Blood Sword." The magical artifact hall of the Earth Sword domain had one before, and it was worth 400 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills. In total, it was more than 40,000 Yuan Jin pills, which was almost the value of the Haoshan Sun Will Sword and the Moon Dance Clear Sky Sword combined. Of course, the merit value determined by the Shushan Immortal Gate does not fully reflect the power and compatibility of the magic weapon. At this point, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. While talking, the two women directly attacked and started a fierce battle. Nangongwei has just reached the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm, but her combat power is not weaker than Xingyu, who is at the third level of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. Shen Xinjiao concluded at the beginning of the battle. Wu Yu then realized that Nangongwei had just reached the purple mansion Kanghai realm. No wonder she could come out of seclusion. Thinking about it, her father's requirements for her should be considered relatively strict. At this time, the two who were fighting probably felt that the other party was not weaker than themselves, and in the first battle, they directly showed their great magical powers. The first was Shenzhengyu. She was flying with the Tianyan meteor sword. When the avenue magic was activated, her eyes suddenly burst into vast starlight, piercing the sky, like a sharp sword, causing the stars in the sky to change. Sky Star Soul. Above the sky, there was a star called the Sky Star. At this moment, it seemed to be summoned by Shenzhengyu. Above the 9 heavens, the stars shook, and a starlight fell from the vast sky, shining the world. The cylindrical starlight suddenly hit Shenzhengyu's body and instantly submerged her. But the starlight did not disappear, but all condensed on Shenzhengyu's body, or merged into the flesh and blood, or condensed outside her body. Anyway, Shenzhengyu looked like a human-shaped star with thousands of feet of starlight, shining the world, and her Danyuan momentum was rising step by step, and her limit was enhanced. Just this Sky Star Soul Avenue magic directly made her abilities in all aspects soar. Of course, Nangongwei was not weak, but even better. Leftward arrow, rightward arrow. When Shenzhengyu summoned the Sky Star Soul, she looked arrogant and her eyes were cold. She soared into the air in the fire. Suddenly, the flames condensed and changed behind her. In a short moment, she actually formed a pair of huge wings. They were clearly the wings of a phoenix. There were 9 colored feathers, gorgeous and domineering. The flames were rising. In the feathers, you could vaguely see 5 words, namely benevolence, righteousness, courtesy, filial piety, and wisdom. The phoenix bathed in fire, holding a sword and soaring. After the appearance of this pair of wings, Nangongwei seemed to have divine help, and her Danyuan became more powerful. When she soared, her speed was terrifying and she flashed away. It was obviously more flexible than flying a sword in battle. It is said that this great magical power, called the wings of the colorful phoenix, came from the colorful phoenix sword emperor. Surrounded by the wings of the colorful phoenix, Nangongwei at this moment showed a kingly momentum that she had never had before. She was already beautiful, and this pair of wings made her even more impressive. Both of them used their magical powers to push themselves to their limits, and then they directly confronted each other. For a moment, the stars shone, the 9 colored flames soared into the sky, the storm swept, and the stars trembled. As expected of a battle in the purple mansion Kanghai realm, Wu Yu was still dazzled, and it was even more exciting than the previous battles, especially Nangongwei, who undoubtedly gave everyone a huge surprise. In the Duxian battlefield, the wings of the colorful phoenix kept changing, even exceeding the speed of Shenzhengyu's meteor. Star Sea Divine Mang Sword Technique. Shenzhengyu was burned by the flames and sweated profusely. The opponent's identity and strength put a lot of pressure on her. In the desperate situation, the Tianyan meteor sword penetrated the flames and violently killed, sweeping across a sea of stars. In the sea of stars, there were thousands of sword auras like starlight, penetrating. 9 Fire Devouring God Sword Technique. Unexpectedly, Nangongwei was still calm, even cold. She seemed to have a lot of combat experience. Wu Yu could see from her every move that she was definitely honed in a life and death battle. Swordsmanship was performed, and 9 groups of flames in the red phoenix blood sword rushed away like monsters, engulfing countless starlights and rushing to Shenzhengyu's eyes. For a moment, this monster-like flame completely suppressed Shenzhengyu below. Under the flapping of the colorful phoenix wings, the flames were like a storm, engulfing Shenzhengyu. I admit defeat. Shenzhengyu's helpless voice came in the rolling anger. Huh. Suddenly, the flames rolled and returned to Nangongwei's body in an instant. After Shenzhengyu admitted defeat, she did not hurt her at all. This battle ended in a friendly way, and everyone was not satisfied yet. Nangongwei, 1. Shen Xingyu still didn't expect that the woman who defeated her would be the little girl who followed Wu Yu at the beginning. She just smiled bitterly, but thought about it. Being able to become the opponent of the daughter of Qiang's sword fairy in the first battle is also a matter of increasing popularity. Today's defeat is purely a matter of strength, and it's not the fault of others. Junior sister Nangong is really amazing, I admire you. Shen Xingyu turned pale, adjusted, and said with his hands. Sister Shen is also amazing. Nangong Wei suddenly felt relieved. At this time, hundreds of Earth Sword level disciples were stunned and admiring her. They were talking and discussing, all of which were saying that Nangong Wei in front of them was only 19 years old, and her future would only be terrible. I can only say that she is more likely to become a Sword Immortal level existence in the future than the Galaxy Sword Master. This undoubtedly shows that Nangong Wei's talent currently surpasses the legendary Shen Xingyu. After the victory, Sword Master Xuanhuan stepped forward and said quickly, "The victory has been decided." With this, Wei has become a member of the Earth Sword Immortal ranking. You have successfully completed your father's test for you. In the future, you are now free. Yeah, free. Nangong Wei suddenly changed. There seemed to be tears flashing in her eyes. At this moment, she was the center of everyone's attention. Everyone wanted to come up and say a few words to her, but they didn't have the courage, but she was there. On the battlefield of Dosyen, he turned around numbly and looked at Shen Xingyu. What's wrong with her? Could it be that she has something to do with the Galaxy Sword Master? Nangong Wei's sudden change surprised everyone. Judging from just now, she was resolute and decisive, and her strikes were clean and neat. How could there be such a moment of deep affection? At this time, Shen Xingyu stepped aside and went to take care of Shen Xingyu. Wu Yu was unstoppable and appeared in everyone's sight. He also looked at Nangong Wei unpreparedly. At that moment, Wu Yu saw the familiar her again. She was still pure and lively, but now she had grown up and was not as green as before. Every move, her delicate face and exquisite figure had the charm of a woman. Brother, Nangong Wei was slightly shocked. She seemed to be free of restraints and couldn't care about anything else. In full view of everyone, she swiped and flew to Wu Yu in the blink of an eye. She hadn't seen him for several years. Such a close contact made time pass. But the longing has deepened. At this moment, the eyes are facing each other, which is the moment when the emotions surge and explode. Wire Wu Yu was a little worried before, worried that she had changed a lot and no longer recognized him. But when he saw Nangong Wei's excited tears, he knew that he was overthinking. She was still her, she was just growing up. Growth does not completely change her. He opened his arms in front of everyone. Nangong Wei wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes, smiled, and went forward to hug him. In the blink of an eye, Nephrite was in my arms, and the fragrance hit my nostrils. Judging from the strength of supporting her breasts, the two bulging lumps in her chest, the curve of her waist, etc., you can feel that she has really grown up, and she is close to her. There is a trace of restlessness in the body. Perhaps due to her training, Nangong Wei's body is particularly hot, similar to Wu Yu's. Both are bodies of fire. When they touch each other, they are like two flames, burning fiercely. They vaguely want to fight, but also vaguely interact with each other. Fusion, the more it burns, the more vigorous it becomes. The two of them were deeply in love, which shocked everyone present. What happened unintentionally was the most incredible thing. Wu Yu and Nangong Wei seemed to be two completely unrelated people. How could they hug each other like this as if they had known each other for a long time? Even Wu Yu's hands were placed on the beauty's waist. Below the limbs. Shen Xingyu staggered and looked at Shen Xingyu in shock. Forget it, this is the little girl who was following him. Shen Xingyu immediately opened his mouth and was stunned. After a long time, he said, "This is really a strange fate. As for the others, they looked at each other in confusion, still completely unaware of what had happened. Everyone said hello, and those sword masters were especially nervous. The reason why they came here today was because Qiang's sword immortal ordered to take care of Nangong Wei. But now that Nangong Wei took the initiative to throw herself into Wu Yu's arms, they didn't know what to do. What's going on? This. Xuanhuan sword master had to interrupt them and said slightly embarrassed. People couldn't help but look at Wu Yu with strange eyes. Although Wu Yu had some talents, compared with Nangong Wei, the proud daughter of heaven, he was much inferior. Even Mu Lingch and the others looked down on Wu Yu, so why could he be here? At that time, I hugged beautiful women, not to mention many young monks, but also many middle-aged people, who felt a little uncomfortable. However, even if Sword Master Xuanhuan spoke, Wu Yu didn't listen. They hadn't seen each other for some years. When he was at the Supreme Hunting Ground, his belief was to come back to see her and keep the appointment. Now that they are finally together, every moment is precious. He doesn't willing to waste. Nangong Wei was still young before, but now she has grown up and is charming. Wu Yu feels that he has no reason to let her leave him again. Just as she said, when she returns one day, she is willing to join you in the double immortal palace. Taoist lovers share life and death. Heaven swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 331. Shenzhen Jiao, what's going on? Xuanhuan Sword Saint, Dongyu Sword Saint and the Red Shadow Sword Saint could only look for the answer from Shenzhen Jiao. Shenzhen Jiao did not hide it and said, Nangong Wei played in the Fanjian domain for a while a few years ago and spent some time with Wu Yu. So that's it? Seeing that they were hugging each other too tightly, Xuanhuan Sword Saint felt depressed and nervous, and said, I think they are young and ignorant, I'm afraid they have feelings for each other. Does Qiang's sword immortal know about this? I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow diamond suit. Shenzhen Jiao said lightly, anyway, you don't need to worry about it. Okay, since Shenzhen Jiao said so, it was none of his business. This matter related to Nangong Wei's future was something that Qiang's sword immortal would take care of himself. However, Wu Yu had just been defeated by Mu Lingch, but now he was at the center of the storm again because of Nangong Wei. Seeing their deep affection, who on the scene did not understand the friendship between the two. With soft jade in his arms and a faint fragrance, Wu Yu could not help but hug her tighter. In his arms, Nangong Wei leaned lightly on his chest, opened her red lips and said, Brother, after coming out of the Samsara cave, I was subject to some restrictions. Forgive me for not coming out to see you in time. Wu Yu had expected this, so he did not take it to heart. He said, if it is convenient, let's find a quiet place and talk about it in detail, how about it? Well, Nangong Wei nodded, she looked at Wu Yu, and said, you should have become a Huangjian level disciple, then go to your cave. With her current cultivation in the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm, she naturally knew Wu Yu's approximate Jindan realm. In terms of realm, she has far surpassed Wu Yu. I'm in the Xianjian domain, let's go with Nangong Wei's identity and realm, she can definitely walk around the entire Qingtianshu mountain at will. Xianjian domain, Nangong Wei was a little surprised. She didn't expect Wu Yu to have made such great progress. With his current realm, it was a special case for him to enter Xianjian domain. The two of them no longer had anyone else in their eyes. After the agreement, Nangong Wei pulled him and went down directly without saying goodbye to everyone. She was very fast. In a blink of an eye, she pulled Wu Yu through the barrier and came to Xianjian domain. The barrier did not stop her. Now, she has many things that Wu Yu doesn't understand. However, Wu Yu didn't care much. Seeing Nangong Wei so mysterious, he was just happy for her from the bottom of his heart. Seeing the two of them walk away so swaggeringly, the remaining Shushan disciples looked at each other, and everyone's face was very exciting. Wu Yu is a good guy. He just took down the only daughter of our Qiang sword immortal. I didn't expect this kid to have such charm. Shen Xingyu was the only one who was very happy about this. The other sword masters looked a little depressed. Shen Xingyu, are you sure that Qiang sword immortal won't care about them? In the eyes of Xuanhuan sword saint, if it really comes to the point of being a Taoist couple, Wu Yu is not worthy of Nangang Wei now. That's Qiang sword immortal's business. Shen Xingyu didn't want to say more. After that, he left directly, probably going to the Yellow Sword Domain Lord's mansion. Hey! Brother, wait for me, Shen Xingyu hurriedly chased after him. They left again, and the remaining Earth Sword level disciples and Shushan Sword Saints were in a complicated mood for a while. I don't think they are good. Qiang Sword Immortal will never agree, Mu Ling sneered. That's for sure. A toad wants to eat swan meat. This Wu Yu is really shameless. It is estimated that when Nangang Wei was young, she was confused by him. Now, she will soon see the gap between Wu Yu and her. Chen Fuyu said with gritted teeth. But no matter what, the news of Nangang Wei's first battle today, as well as her relationship with Wu Yu, will spread throughout the Shushan Immortal Gate and even the entire Shenzhou in a very short time. However, Wu Yu and Nangang Wei didn't care about this. They came to the Qishan cave, went in, closed the magic circle, and in the Qishan cave filled with spiritual energy, they were the only ones left. Wu Yu saw her attractive cherry lips, and his head was hot. Without saying a word, he held her powerful waist and kissed her red lips. In an instant, it seemed as if he was suffocating. As soon as he touched a little, a burst of black flames burned into Wu Yu's mouth, which made him scream in pain and let go of Nangang Wei. He didn't need to look to know that his lips were probably burnt now, and he could smell the smell of burning. This black flame could burn his golden body of the Buddhismo Beiyuan, which was obviously not an ordinary flame. Wu Yu didn't expect her to hurt him at all, so he was stunned for a moment. However, Nangang Wei was also stunned for a moment, and then she looked anxious, and hurriedly asked Wu Yu, "Brother, are you okay?" "It's okay." Wu Yu was a little depressed. Of course, he dodged in time, so it was not a big deal, and he would recover in an hour. But now it was like two burnt sausages on his mouth, which was really not beautiful. Nangang Wei looked angry and said, "This must be done by my father, he knows the most about these strange methods." Wu Yu understood that he had wronged Nangang Wei. It was not Nangang Wei who took action, but that Qiang sword immortal had set up a magic circle or something else on Nangang Wei. I am afraid that as long as Wu Yu kissed her, he would be burned before he succeeded. Even this is not possible, let alone further communication. At most, he could only hug a few times. Wu Yu calmed down for a while, and he stared at Nangang Wei in the fairy mist. She was now as tempting as a peach and as warm as a flame. "Qiang sword immortal, do you know my existence?" Wu Yu asked. Nangang Wei nodded and said, "Of course he knows. There are not many things in this Shushan immortal sect that he doesn't know. He may even be by your side and he doesn't know his existence." This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Wu Yu suddenly felt horrified. It turns out that there is such a swordsman who is paying attention to his existence. If he really gets together with Nangang Wei in the future, then this father-in-law will be really scary. For now, it is a mercy for him not to kill him. From this point of view, at least before becoming a Taoist monk, don't even think about touching Nangang Wei. The two of them sat cross-legged in the training room, leaning against the wall. They hadn't seen each other for many years. Naturally, there were many things that both parties wanted to know. "Brother, there is something I want to apologize to you for," Nangang Wei suddenly said. "You say?" She stared at Wu Yu with her beautiful eyes, hesitated to speak, hesitated for a while, and finally said solemnly, "A few years ago, when I was still young, I said and did things without thinking. At that time, I wrote a few words, you should have seen it, but now, My father doesn't want me to be so hasty, so he set a rule for me that I must abide by, otherwise, it will be difficult for me to have freedom in the future. When Wu Yu heard this, he felt a little uncomfortable and asked, "What are the rules?" Nangongwei said, "He doesn't restrict who I can be with, but if I want to become a Taoist couple, the other person must meet a condition, otherwise it will be impossible. If I don't listen to him on this matter, he will be very disappointed with me, and he will not want me to leave Shushan Fairyland." After all, this was not something she could control, and he was her father, the only elder. Wu Yu was not angry, but asked, "Then what is this condition?" Back then, the girl gave him the coveted 9 directions demonic suppressing pillar in the ice and snow. Wu Yu could not forget that scene, nor could he forget her nervousness and apprehension. Nangongwei said, "He said that the man must be the same age as me, within 10 years, and he must have the strength to defeat me. Although there is only one condition, judging from Nangongwei's current level, it is estimated that there are no more than 5 people in the entire divine continent who can meet the condition. Wu Yu is the same age as her, but currently, he can defeat even Shen Xingyu. It will take 10 years for Wu Yu to catch up with her and defeat her." After listening, Wu Yu thought in silence for a moment. Now it was not exactly the same as what he thought. But after thinking about it carefully, he couldn't blame Nangongwei. She couldn't help it, so Wu Yu could think about it. He smiled slightly and said, he held Nangongwei in his arms and said, "This is not easy. In a few years, you will no longer be my opponent." Seeing that he was not angry, Nangongwei felt a little more at ease, so she also smiled softly and said, "Don't brag. My father said that there are no more people in Shenzhou who can catch up with me when they are lagging behind me. There are 3. Although it was slightly difficult, Wu Yu felt that it would not be a problem. He stared at Nangongwei and said, "Then, if one day I defeat you, we will go to the double immortal palace, how about that?" Yes, Nangongwei nodded, but her eyes still seemed a little worried. Perhaps, she felt that that day might be a little far away. Amid the fairy mist, Wu Yu stared at this beauty. Her eyes and demeanor showed that she was no longer the little girl she was before. She was more charming, and of course more capable of thinking and independent. After all, she was reincarnated in Shushan. After being tempered in the cave of reincarnation, the character of the little girl in the past would definitely not be able to achieve anything in the cave of reincarnation. He was about to ask, but Nangongwei spoke first, saying, "Brother, I heard that you disappeared just after I came out of the reincarnation cave. Later I heard that you came back from the endless demon sea. Can you tell where that this what have you been through in the past few years?" In fact, Wu Yu was more curious about what she had experienced. He suddenly remembered Nangongwei's hatred for demons, and people like Zhu Ying could never tell her. In the past, Wu Yu didn't kill monsters and she didn't say much, but now she is no longer such a gentle person. He could only ignore Zhu Ying and briefly explained what happened to him in the Supreme Hunting Ground. In the Supreme Hunting Ground of demons, such a dangerous place, it is really not easy for you to leave alive. It's also my fault. I wanted to find you at that time, but my father set a limit for me. I must break through to Zifukanghai. He is willing to let me go free only if I reach the top of the Earth Sword Immortal ranking. It doesn't matter, we left alive anyway." Wu Yu smiled. Nangongwei's eyes were stern and she said, "I will have to settle this debt with the demon sooner or later." Wu Yu knew that he could not change her opinion, so he changed the subject and asked, "By the way, what experience did you have in the Samsara cave for 3 years? I heard that you also received the inheritance of the Kwang Sword Emperor."